Over 10 million people are in the direct path of severe weather at this very moment. Not tomorrow, not this weekend. Right now, this afternoon, February 19th, 2026. And that is just the beginning of what may be one of the most dangerous 5-day weather stretches the United States has seen in decades. Here is exactly what you will learn in this video. I will give you the precise hour-by-hour timing for today's tornado threat, down to the specific cities at risk. I will break down the blizzard that is already developing behind this storm system, with exact snowfall totals by region from east to west. And I will show you the forecast models for a potential historic nor'easter this weekend that, if it verifies, could put over a foot of snow along the entire East Coast in a matter of hours. This is not one storm. This is not two storms. We are tracking 3 simultaneous disaster-level weather events, plus an ongoing wildfire crisis in the southern plains, all hitting within a 5-day window. By the end of this report, you will understand why meteorologists are watching this pattern with a level of concern that rarely appears this early in the forecast cycle. But first, you need to understand why this setup is so different from a typical late winter pattern. And the answer will surprise you. The Storm Prediction Center has placed more than 10 million Americans under a severe weather threat today, with a slight risk corridor covering Indianapolis, Louisville, Evansville, Cincinnati, and Lexington. A slight risk designation means organized tornado-producing supercells are expected, not just possible. 5% tornado probability circles are already drawn over central Indiana, including Indianapolis and Noblesville, as well as southwestern Indiana and the Ohio Valley. The last time this specific region saw tornado parameters this high in February was not last year. It was not the year before. But that is not the worst of it. Right now, at this very moment, significant tornado parameter values, what meteorologists call STP, are showing reds and oranges across Kentucky, Illinois, and Indiana. Those are the same values you see on outbreak days. And here is what nobody else is telling you. This storm's low-pressure center is actually slowing down. That is critical. A slower system means warmer, more moisture-laden air will surge further north before the atmosphere destabilizes. More fuel, more time, more instability. That changes the risk calculation significantly. Meanwhile, on the backside of this same storm, a winter weather disaster is already developing across Des Moines, Omaha, Green Bay, and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. 4 to 8 inches of snow in the next 24 hours. And somewhere off the Atlantic coastline, a potential bomb cyclone is waiting to be born this weekend. If you live anywhere from New England to the Mid-Atlantic to the Ohio Valley, pay close attention to what comes next. The situation is about to get much worse before it gets better. To understand why today is so dangerous, you need to understand what is happening in the atmosphere above you right now. A powerful upper-level disturbance, a fast-moving wave of energy in the jet stream, is sweeping across the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys this morning. Ahead of this system, warmer and more humid air is surging northward from the Gulf of Mexico. Dew points, which measure atmospheric moisture, are climbing into ranges that belong in April, not February. When you combine that moisture surge with an unusually strong wind shear profile, meaning winds at different altitudes, blowing at very different speeds and directions, you get the single most critical ingredient for violent rotating thunderstorms. Think of it like a spinning top. The more energy and spin you put into the atmosphere from below and above simultaneously, the faster and more violently the rotation. That rotation, when it descends to the surface, becomes a tornado. But here is what should absolutely shock you. This mechanism is enhanced today precisely because the low pressure is moving slower than originally forecast. That gives the warm sector, the most dangerous zone south and east of the low, more time to destabilize before storms initiate. The Storm Prediction Center acknowledged this shift this morning, and forecasters would not be surprised if the slight risk is upgraded to an enhanced risk as daytime heating peaks this afternoon. Now, drop your location in the comments right now and tell me what city or state you are watching from. I will personally reply with what to expect for your specific area, including timing and threat level. Thousands of viewers are already doing this across the country. Do not wait. Type your location now. And here is the terrifying part about what comes after today's severe weather ends. The same cold front that drives these tornadoes east will transform overnight into one of the most significant winter storms of the season. The atmosphere does not rest this week. Here is your critical timeline for today through the weekend, broken down by region from east to west. Starting with the eastern region. For the Northeast, including upstate New York, Vermont, and northern New England, heavy snow and mixed precipitation from the current storm system will continue through tonight, February 19th, and taper into early Friday, February 20th. Light icing remains possible near southeastern New York and northeastern Pennsylvania through the overnight hours tonight. Southern New England, including southern Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, can expect heavy snow continuing through tonight before conditions gradually improve on Friday. Do not be fooled by any clearing you see Friday afternoon. A second, potentially far more dangerous system is still lurking this weekend. For the southeast, including Nashville, central Kentucky, and the Tennessee Valley, the severe weather threat today is lower but not zero. A marginal risk of damaging winds extends into these areas through the evening hours today. After that, activity shifts north and the tornado threat diminishes across this zone. However, mid-level drying will occur, meaning even though wind shear remains in place over Nashville and central Kentucky tonight, organized severe weather is not expected in those areas after dark. Now for the central region, and this is where you need to pay the closest attention. Louisville and Evansville, listen carefully. This is important. You are in the most favored corridor for tornadoes today. Your primary tornado window runs from approximately 1 in the afternoon through 6 in the evening. This is where we have the best combination of wind shear, instability, moisture, and proximity to the boundary. Do not travel during this window if you can avoid it. Cincinnati and the Indiana-Kentucky border area, your peak severe window is between 1 and 3 in the afternoon, with the threat persisting through approximately 7 in the evening. After 7, most storms in your area will become elevated in nature, losing direct surface contact and reducing the tornado threat significantly. Indianapolis and Noblesville, you sit inside the 5% tornado probability circle. Your critical window is between 2 and 5 in the afternoon. Note that storms near and west of Indianapolis are expected to be more elevated in nature compared to the Louisville and Evansville corridor to the south, but a couple of surface-based storms behind the main line could still produce a tornado threat. Stay weather aware throughout the afternoon. East of St. Louis, storm activity is expected to uptick significantly right around noon. Any storm mergers that happen in this zone through early afternoon could rapidly escalate the tornado threat. These are the storms that need to be watched most carefully between noon and 2 in the afternoon. Behind this severe weather event, the winter storm is already organizing. Des Moines and Omaha, your snowfall increases tonight, February 19th, and becomes heavy by Friday morning, February 20th. Accumulations of 4 to 8 inches are expected, with heavier totals likely near central Wisconsin and the upper peninsula of Michigan, where the Weather Prediction Center supports snowfall exceeding 6 inches with moderate to high probability. Now here is what comes next, and this is the part most other forecasts are not fully covering yet. What happens this weekend is still being written, but the models are showing something that demands your attention. Let me put real faces on what these numbers mean. Right now, families in Cincinnati, Ohio are watching storm alerts on their phones while deciding whether to pick their children up from school early. Parents in Indianapolis are calling their elderly parents, urging them to stay indoors. Farmers in Evansville, Indiana, are scrambling to secure livestock before storms arrive. These are not abstract statistics. Over 10 million people are making real-time decisions this afternoon based on a storm setup that forecasters are calling increasingly dangerous with each passing hour. And in Oklahoma, as tornadoes threaten the Ohio Valley right now, a separate disaster has already been burning for days. The Ranger Road fire in Beaver County has consumed 283,283 acres. That is roughly 442 square miles of destroyed land. As of February 19th, it is only 15% contained. Firefighting aircraft have been grounded repeatedly because wind gusts in the area are exceeding 65 miles per hour. Mandatory evacuation orders are in place for Ashland and Englewood in Kansas. Residents near Clark and Comanche counties in Kansas have received Level 3 orders. Go, leave immediately. 6 fire suppression teams were pre-positioned across Beaver County, Texas County, Woodward, Henrietta, and Shawnee. 4 of those teams have already been actively responding to fires throughout the day on Wednesday. FEMA approved fire management assistance grants covering 75% of eligible firefighting costs for the Stevens Fire, the Ranger Road Fire, and the 43 Fire. But for families who have lost cattle, fencing, and property across nearly 500,000 acres of Oklahoma and Kansas, those grants are a beginning, not an end. In both the tornado threat and the wildfire disaster, the common thread is the same wind. The extreme wind gusts grounding aircraft over Oklahoma are generated by the same large-scale pressure gradient driving wind shear over Indiana and Kentucky today. This is a connected continental-scale atmospheric event. And less than 48 hours ago, 8 backcountry skiers lost their lives in an avalanche near Lake Tahoe, California, after 3 to 6 feet of new snow fell onto a hardened, unstable layer in the Sierra Nevada. 6 members of their guided group survived. 1 is still missing as of this morning, February 19th. Remember those 10 million people in the tornado risk zone, and the 283,000 acres burning in Oklahoma, and 8 lives lost in California. These are all happening in the same week, on the same map. This is not hype. This is not exaggeration. If you are in any affected area right now, drop your location in the comments. Tell me where you are. I am personally reading every comment and will respond with specific local updates as conditions continue to evolve. Here is the important part that affects every single person watching. This is not just a storm. We are looking at tornado-driven power outages, blizzard-level snow accumulations, wildfire-caused road and infrastructure destruction, and potential ice accumulations across the Northeast, all happening simultaneously across 4 separate regions of the United States. In the Ohio Valley, power outages from today's severe weather could affect tens of thousands of customers within hours. Downed trees, snapped power lines, and structural damage are common outcomes when wind gusts exceed 60 miles per hour, which are well within today's severe thunderstorm threat parameters. Interstate 70 and Interstate 74 across Indiana and Ohio could see brief but dangerous closures if tornado warnings are issued this afternoon. In the Midwest, Interstate 80 through Iowa and Nebraska will face deteriorating travel conditions tonight as snow intensifies. Travel will become hazardous by Friday morning for Des Moines and Omaha commuters. 4 to 8 inches of heavy, wet snow falling in a compressed time window has historically overwhelmed road treatment resources in this region. In Oklahoma, Highway 64, Highway 270, and Highway 283 have all been directly impacted by the Ranger Road fire. The fire has already crossed the Kansas state line, moving rapidly east-northeast. Power infrastructure in Beaver, Texas, and Woodward counties is compromised. Residents are being directed to report property damages at damage.ok.gov. But here is what most people do not realize. If the weekend storm verifies with the intensity that the GFS model is currently projecting, Interstate 95 from Virginia through New Jersey could face severely dangerous travel conditions by Sunday night into early Monday morning. However, significant uncertainty remains in the track and intensity of this system. The European model is showing a much weaker outcome. What happens in the next 48 hours of model data will be decisive. What comes next for the East Coast is still being written, but the infrastructure risk window is real and demands your attention now. The Oklahoma State Emergency Operations Center has been fully activated since Tuesday, February 17th. Governor Kevin Stitt declared a state of emergency for Beaver, Texas, and Woodward counties, triggering coordination between the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, the Oklahoma National Guard, the National Weather Service, tribal nations, and more than a dozen state agencies and organizations. Oklahoma Baptist Disaster Relief delivered 200 meals to first responders in Beaver County on Wednesday alone. Evacuation shelters were opened at the Moreland Community Center, Moreland United Methodist Church, and the Vichy Community Building. Some evacuation orders in Woodward have since been partially lifted, but select zones remain under restriction as fire behavior continues to shift with changing wind patterns. The Federal Emergency Management Agency approved 3 fire management assistance grants this week for the Stevens Fire in Texas County, the Ranger Road Fire in Beaver County, and the 43 Fire in Woodward County. Those grants reimburse up to 75% of eligible firefighting costs for local governments, volunteer fire departments, and first responders. All agencies that responded are being advised to document every cost tied to equipment, fuel, labor, travel, and demobilization. But the question that emergency managers are quietly asking is one that deserves a public answer. Could earlier pre-positioning of aerial firefighting resources before 65-mile-per-hour wind events made flight operations impossible have slowed the Ranger Road fire before it crossed state lines into Kansas? The fire now spans Beaver County in Oklahoma and Clark and Meade counties in Kansas, at a scale that exceeds what Oklahoma resources alone can contain. In California, Nevada County Sheriff Shannon Moon confirmed Wednesday that investigators are reviewing the decision to proceed with the Sierra Nevada backcountry skiing trip despite an avalanche watch that had been issued at 6:49 in the morning on the day the group departed. 8 are confirmed dead. 1 is still missing. How many of these outcomes were preventable, and what will agencies do differently before the next event? Here is the important part about what this week reveals about where we are in the American weather calendar. We are in what meteorologists recognize as the most volatile transition period of the year, late winter, when Arctic air masses and Gulf moisture begin their seasonal clash. This is historically when the United States sees its most complex and dangerous multi-hazard weeks. What you are watching this week is not an anomaly. The Climate Prediction Center's 3 to 4 week outlook, covering February 28th through March 13th, already shows wetter than normal conditions across the Midwest and Great Lakes. La Niña influences in the Pacific are reinforcing an active storm track across the central and eastern United States. Severe weather season is not weeks away, it is days away. The GFS model, which has shown a consistent signal for several days now, is depicting a significant coastal storm developing Sunday with potential rapid intensification into a bomb cyclone Sunday night into early Monday. If that scenario verifies, snowfall exceeding 1 foot could affect Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. However, and this is critical to understand, the European model is showing a substantially weaker outcome. At this range, 3 to 4 days out, models are, in the words of forecasters themselves, all over the place. This is not a slam dunk. It is a legitimate possibility that demands monitoring, not panic. I will have a full dedicated forecast for the weekend storm tomorrow, February 20th, once another model cycle has run. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss that update. If this storm verifies, it could be one of the most significant East Coast winter events in years. After this week's storm sequence, long-range signals support another potential winter storm across the upper Midwest by the middle of next week, and forecasters are eyeing conditions favorable for severe weather returning to the southern plains and southeast during the final week of February and into early March. Winter is nowhere near finished. Let us recap exactly what you now know. Over 10 million Americans are in an active severe weather threat zone today across the Ohio Valley. The primary tornado window for Louisville, Evansville, and the Indiana-Kentucky border runs from 1 in the afternoon through 6 in the evening. Indianapolis and Noblesville face their most critical tornado window between 2 and 5 in the afternoon, with storms near that area potentially more elevated in nature than the southern corridor. 4 to 8 inches of snow are expected tonight through Friday across Des Moines, central Wisconsin, and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. The Ranger Road fire in Oklahoma has burned 283,283 acres and is only 15% contained, with mandatory evacuations still active in Ashland and Englewood, Kansas, and a potential major winter storm with significant uncertainty still attached is being tracked for this Sunday through Monday along the East Coast. I will be tracking every one of these events closely, including a full dedicated nor'easter update tomorrow morning. If you want specific information for your city, Drop your location in the comments right now and tell me where you are watching from. I will respond with your specific timing, snowfall totals, and threat level. Thousands of people are already doing this from every region of the country. Do not wait until you are watching it happen out your window. Type your location now. Share this video with everyone you know in the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, and along the East Coast. They need to see this before today's severe weather window opens. This is not hype. This is not exaggeration. Meteorologists and emergency managers at every level are activated right now because the data demands it. Final question. With 3 simultaneous disaster-level events hitting the United States in a single week, tornadoes across the Ohio Valley, a blizzard across the Midwest, and an uncontrolled wildfire in the southern plains, do you believe the current public warning system gives Americans enough time to prepare? Or are we still failing to close the gap between what forecasters know and what communities actually do?